In this election, we each face a question. What kind of country do we want to live in? There are some people who think we should be a country of chaos, of fear, of hate. But us, we choose something different. We choose freedom.
Freedom, freedom, I can't move. Freedom, cut me loose. Yeah. Freedom, freedom, where are you? 'Cause I need freedom too.
The freedom not just to get by, but get ahead. The freedom to be safe from gun violence. The freedom to make decisions about your own body. We choose a future where no child lives in poverty, where we can all afford health care, where no one is above the law. We believe in the promise of America, and we're ready to fight for it. Because when we fight, we win. So join us. Go to KamalaHarris.com and let's get to work.
I'ma keep on running 'cause the winner don't quit on themselves.
Because the winner don't quit on himself. Hey.
They don't. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm Richard Fowler along with Kenya Hutton. Welcome to the LGBTQ Black Call, hosted by the Center for Black Equity Political Action Fund.
Yes,
Kenya,
yes.
You're the CEO and president of the Center for Black Equity. Tell us about CBE.
Yes, so Center for Black Equity is an organization that was founded back in 1999 by our great Earl Fowlkes. We do a lot of advocacy work around the community, enriching Black lives for queer people around the world. However, we have started the CBE Political Action Fund, which is what I'm going to be talking about today. And we're here advocating for, of course, Vice President Harris and Walz, as well as, really trying to shed light and support some Black LGBTQ folks running for office around the country this election season.
So before we get into the Political Action Fund, for the folks who are on this call for the first time, this is the first time they're hearing about CBE. What does CBE do every single day for the Black LGBTQIA community?
We fight, we advocate, we enrich, we support Black leaders, we support Black queer leaders in creating equitable spaces for their communities for across the globe, right? We started off at about 7 or 8 Pride leaders, and now we have well over 54 in the United States, as well as some overseas. So we're really expanding our work, really creating and again sustaining spaces for Black queer folks and equity for us. We believe in equity from health to social equity, financial equity. We just believe we should be getting all the things that everyone else should have around the world.
And I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think the Black Pride experience in itself is something that matters. And I'm so happy that this election cycle, we're tapping into it. I remember, I'm not that old, but I remember my first Black Pride and what it meant to, one, be seen and be free to express myself, but 2, to do it in a space with people who look like me and people who love like me and people who identified like me. So how many Black Prides are there in the United States? And then tell me how many there are in the world.
Yeah, we have about 54 in the world, and we just brought in Black Pride Netherlands. We just re-engaged with Black Pride Toronto. We have Black Pride UK, which is next weekend. We have about 4 or 5 around overseas and about 54 domestically. And I remember my first Black Pride too. I remember my first Black Pride. It was DC Black Pride, ironically.
Same.
And that experience of coming down and just seeing, melanated excellence, happiness, everyone just celebrating was something that I would remember for the rest of my life.
And listen, I mean, one, where me and Kenya are connected, we're both Jamaican, and there's a number of Jamaican Black Prides. But 2, I think the ideal of why this organization was created, and one of the founders, Ernest Hopkins, I interviewed him last year 2 years ago for Forbes, and talking about why they created this and why decades later, we're still having Black Pride, and people are still coming from across the country to the first Black Pride here in our nation's capital. Speaks to the work of the Center for Black Equity. I wanted to get that out the way. That's not why we're here tonight. We're here tonight to uplift and empower and celebrate Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, who are running for president of the United States, if y'all didn't know that already. So Kenya, what's some of the work that's happening at the Action Fund around empowering LGBTQ folks in this election?
So voter drives. And we're actually taking it a little step further and going beyond just voter drives, getting out the vote. We're doing voter education, things like calls like this, right? We're bringing together elected officials and community advocates from around the country to really come and educate folks on who's running, what's at stake, and some of the policies they should really know when we make it to the polls in November. I
love that. Irene says, my first Black Pride, 1998. Good night. Come on, Irene, we see you. And speaking about that, let's bring up our first speaker. He means so much to me. He definitely means so much to you, Kenya. And on top of that, his work in the Democratic Party goes without saying. The one and only Earl D. Fowlkes Jr., who's the chair of the DNC LGBTQ Caucus and the former president and CEO, or president and CEO emeritus of
president and CEO emeritus.
I don't know why you say my say junior. My father's not going to pop on this call today. He's already in bed. If I had told him about it, he would be on, though. I have to say that. It's a pleasure to be here for so many reasons. I have so much mad respect for both Kenya Hutton, who is now filling my shoes, and my shoes are probably too small for him. Hopefully, he got another pair. And then Richard Fowler, who I've seen mature into this icon of journalism, and working for a station, working for an organization that many of us wouldn't consider. And he's held his own there, and he's fought the good fight, and he stands up. And I listen to him. I used to would not watch Richard on the television because of who he was working for. But now I watch him because he's the only voice of reason on that program, and it soothes me. It makes me feel good when I hear Richard talk. So I'm here not representing the CBE Political Action Fund. I'm here representing the DNC LGBT Caucus, which I've been honored to be the chair of the caucus for 11 years and have been a member of the DNC for 15 years. And I have to tell you something. In that time, I came involved in the Democratic Party in my role now during the Obama administration. And I'll tell you something. I have not seen this much excitement since the first term of Obama. And even that was a gradual thing. It didn't really hit its apex until the Democratic Convention in Denver. This has happened overnight. This has happened in basically less than 2 weeks. This has been incredible. The enthusiasm, my own family members who were not going to vote for the president for a variety of reasons, that have decided, what can we do to help Harris win? What can we do to help Harris win? Is she going to win? Is she going to win? She can win, but it's going to take a whole lot of work for her to win. And it's possible. There's a road to victory, and we're digging that road out every day. The DNC and the convention staff and then the campaign staff. But I have to say something else, and I want to say that Governor Walz from Minnesota is an excellent choice. School teacher, football coach, served in the Army Reserves, was a congressman, now governor. He's going to bring some talent and skill to this administration that will continue the work that President Biden has been started, and Vice President Harris is going to finish the work. But I just want to say one more thing before I let you go to the important people on the call. We can't just be excited about Harris and Walz. We have to work up and down the ballot. We need a whole slew of people to make our agenda heard and acted upon. It can't be just the president of the United States and the vice president of the United States. It has to be up and down the ballot. And over the time I've been in the DNC, I've seen this explosion of queer candidates, many who labor in darkness and unknown and unseen. We have to lift these queer candidates up and lift our allies up. And some of these candidates are on this call today. And most importantly, we need to hear from community activists regarding the issues that are important in our communities. We must be the ones who inform our people with what's going on in the community, especially with so much misinformation. We have to be the sources of positive information in our community. And we know that in the Black community, it's often not what we see in the print or not what we see on our phones, but what we hear from our neighbors and our friends and our family. This campaign, the next 90 days of this campaign, you and I have to speak to our people and let them know that local elections are important. Who we elect as judges are important. Who we elect as city council people are important. Our county executives are important. We must engage the entire community, not just for this presidential election, but all elections up and down the ballot. I just want to say that. And it's time for all hands are on deck. We need everyone. All hands are on deck. All parts of our community, the transgender community, a ballroom community, every part of our community, youth, seniors, everyone has to be part of this community. We can't leave anyone out. Thank you.
Thank you, Earl. We couldn't have said it better, Kenya. I mean,
yeah, I'm like, Earl, come on now.
Everybody needs to be on deck.
Everybody needs to be on deck. And Earl, you are one of the important people for this call. Like you have not only led, but you've paved the way for many of us to come in behind you. So you are one of the people, and that's why it's important to start this call with you. Look at the message you started off with. You just set the tone.
And you're only as good as the people behind you. So, you know, if I'm good, you're good. And if you're good, I'm good. It works that way.
Listen, but there's something to be said. 11 years as the chair of the LGBTQ caucus at the Democratic National Committee.
Yeah.
Now, let me tell y'all, because I mean, like I said, I'm young, but a little old. I remember when there was only 2 openly Black gay men on the DNC, and Earl was one of them. So for 11 years as the chair of the caucus, bravo, my brother.
It ain't been easy. It hasn't been easy.
You make it look good. You make it look good.
That part is indeed true.
Yeah.
Indeed true. Thank you for joining the call tonight, Earl.
Thank you for your words, and thank you for everything that you do, Earl.
Thank you.
Listen, Kenny, speaking about misinformation, this one you'll appreciate. So last week, former President Donald Trump was at the NABJ and he questioned Kamala Harris's race. And, you know, I found that one particularly interesting because Kamala's blackness, my blackness, and your blackness, and sort of everybody's calls, like, but specifically her blackness and our blackness are the same because Kamala Harris's father, for those folks who don't know, is Jamaican.
Yeah.
And so throughout this call, we'll knock down some of the misinformation that you commonly hear about the sitting vice president of the United States. But one of the things is that she's not Black because she went to Howard, but beyond her going to Howard, she is Black because she is a descendant of enslaved people from the little island in the Caribbean Sea called Jamaica. We're not doing that well in track right now, but we'll, you know.
That when that question came out, I was beside myself. I was like, really? Really? That's what we're gonna say? Okay.
But let's move on. And to all the people, I know HU's in the audience. I see people already talking about HU. You know, I know. We know HU. We see you. We know. Kenya, go ahead and introduce our next guest tonight.
Yes, the next person, I am so excited. Let me take my glasses off for this one. So excited. Every time I get around this individual, it's a ball of joy and information. Someone who is legendary in her own right. The amazing, I'm going to say her, she's a policy advocate, political strategist, and community leader, the one and only Victoria Kirby York.
Hey, family. So excited to be with y'all. Yes. Y'all had me having my own little amen corner back here. Yes. You know, y'all already done said the HU. You all already know. So, you know, I'm going to just go ahead and say thank you for underscoring that. And as Aubrey just put up on the screen, hey, Nicole, have to give tremendous gratitude to Earl Fowlkes. He's also a huge mentor of mine since my Howard days when I was the first of our community to serve on Howard's Board of Trustees. And the first board experience I had after that was serving on CBE's board when it was before the International Federation of Black Pride. So as a former board member, my heart is just filled with joy to see this political action work just take root. And I'm so incredibly proud of your leadership, Kenya. I know the organization is in great hands.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes, you're welcome. So, you know, Earl hit on some of the things that I was going to lift up. I'm going to expound on it a little bit. How many of y'all watching the Olympics? Come on, what's your favorite sports? I see some of y'all commenting on there. Y'all watching the women's basketball, men's basketball team, all of that. Well, right now, I'm particularly focused in on, track and field. Yes, we've been killing it in track and field. I mean, in those uniforms, I can't even run like that anymore. But anyway, I'm going to get distracted. The themes that I want to pull from line in with the Olympics, particularly for those who like basketball. I'm going to talk to y'all briefly about alley-oops, steals, and blocks that we need to do this election in order to support our girl, Vice President, soon to be President, Kamala Harris, and Governor Walz. The first thing is about blocks. We're going to kick it off with where I ended that. There is a lot of disinformation out there. Bot farms that are being paid out, whether it's through the internet programs or individual people being hired to throw water on any excitement or energy coming out of campaign events from the Harris-Walz team. Sometimes they're bold lies that are being circulated and amplified by people who know they're not telling the truth. And you also have Russian and other government organizations from other countries interfering in blackface. We saw that in 2016, where the Russian government literally paid to take images of Black people, create new names, experiences, use content that got us excited, only to then use those same accounts to put out massive disinformation that some very well-meaning people in our community, good leaders in our community, also fell for, retweeted, and amplified. And so this time around, we're going to learn our lesson, right? We're going to block that. All right? Can I say hashtag block that? We're going to block the disinformation. The moment you see it, name the lie. Don't let it continue to spread. Nip it in the butt. Yes, block like LeBron James in the finals. That's what we need all of us to do. And then we also have to take a page out of Governor Walz, the newly announced running mate. I really like the guy. I didn't know who he was 3 weeks ago, but now I just can't stop researching more things about him. He's just a really cool dude. We have to take a page out of his book and do some stealing. And what I mean by that is far too often we've allowed the other side to take the ball and keep the ball on issues related to freedom, faith, and local government. There's certainly other categories we can throw in there, but I'm going to stick with those three for right now. We've seen Governor Walz and also Vice President Harris throughout her career lift up what it truly means to support freedom for all people, making sure that, you know, where they're discounting the needs of women and trans men and other people with reproductive health needs, the intersex community, that we're saying freedom means minding your business, right? As he said, and allowing us to make the decisions that make the most sense for our lives, for our bodies, and our families. When we look at faith, for the longest time, I don't even like to call them evangelicals, because the evangelicals I grew up with were about spreading the good gospel of Christ, the words in red, where we focused on taking care of our neighbors, ensuring that the people who were in prison weren't left there without somebody fighting for them, making sure that if somebody was starving, that we weren't just kicking them out on the street, or making it so that people didn't have access to some measure of a quality of life to be able to build up the opportunity that they need to succeed. That's what faith looked like on the evangelical side when I was coming up. What we hear out of these folks' mouths today does not represent the Christian faith, and I don't know too many other religious traditions that it actually represents. So we have to steal the ball from them on that front and make sure that we're continuing to lift up our values and not allowing them to take the ball, run with it, and make shots that we otherwise could grab and take for ourselves. And then when I talk about the alley-oop, this is the most important. For those of you not familiar with the game of basketball, the alley-oop is the moment in which one player shoots the ball so that another player can jump up, get the ball, and slam dunk that thing in. It is the move that you see replayed over and over again, because when it matches up and it happens, it is wonderful and magical. Well, let me tell you something about this Biden-Harris administration. For people who are looking for some policy sound bites that you can take back, as Kenya said, I like to bring some joy, but I'm going to bring you some information, all right? The information that I'm going to throw down for you on. When people ask you, well, what did they do for Black people? This is just a short list. You can go to whitehouse.gov/equity and get the long list. But on the short list, Black farmers, just as of this week, have already gotten $1 billion, over $1 billion of $2 billion that were allocated in the last Congress under Democratic Party leadership before we let the Republicans take the House. That's another note for another time. We got the $2 billion for Black farmers who experience discrimination at the hands of our very own government. The checks have been received. People have been able to cash out that $1 billion. I got that confirmed earlier today. We saw with LGBTQ service workers, service members, people who were discharged under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, or people who weren't able to get marriage benefits because of DOMA in the past under the VA. Folks were able to get restitution, or as we call it, reparations for that, right? To make sure that people's discharges are upgraded to honorable and folks can get access to really great new veterans programs like the PACT Act, where people are getting money for injuries caused by their time in government. People discharged under Don't Ask, Don't Tell need that, especially Black service members. We also saw the government invest in a cure for sickle cell. Who's disproportionately impacted by sickle cell? Black people. 90% of the people hospitalized due to sickle cell look like us. And we now have a cure that with the alley-oop, right, we're going to be able to move. And when I say alley-oop, what I've seen with this administration is they have done significant work collecting data, getting LGBTQ data that we didn't have before, getting data from every single agency in the government about how we can have more equitable policies, especially uprooting racial inequities. And so we have a lot of the insights that we need to move reparations forward. And if we get this alley-oop right, Harris and Walz, they try to set us up for that shot, right? But as voters, we have to knock that ball in. And we also have to make sure all levels of government that we're making sure that we have a full roster, because LeBron James and Asia can't carry the teams on their own, right? They need a full roster of supporters. The full roster of supporters for the next stage of these programs is having a 60-vote filibuster-proof majority in the Senate, winning back a majority in the House, so that we can move reparations legislation. But we got to get our oop together. It can't just be on them to have the alley, so to speak. The other piece that I'll lift up is that they have been extremely, extremely keyed in to responsiveness to issues. When we flagged I'll keep it C3. When it was flagged for the administration that there was an epidemic of violence impacting Black transgender women, it didn't take them years. It didn't take them months to respond. They created an interagency working group across the whole of government to address the real threat of violence facing Black transgender women in this country, and produced action plans that have been incorporated throughout government as a result. When it was flagged for them that the Mpox vaccines were getting to white gay people, but Black folks didn't really know about it because we're not going to health centers necessarily in Chelsea or Boys Town or Wilton Manors. We're going to health centers in the hood. So if the information isn't in Black newspapers and Black media and in Black locations, our people weren't going to get that information. They heard it and said, you're right. And then created an equity plan almost right away, which started at Atlanta Black Pride, the year that the Mpox outbreak happened. And so we were able to be the ally in that space, and the administration was able to oop that thing in. Now, in order to get even more progress, and again, that was just a short list, in order to get even more of what we've been fighting for and what we want as a community, we have to make sure that our community is registered, educated, motivated, and that they have a vote plan, that they know whether they're going to vote by mail, vote early, vote on election day, or and know that their voter information is up to date and that they have not been moved off the rolls for one reason or another. It is our duty to look out for each other and to make sure our people have the information that they need to ensure that we don't see Trump in the White House again for a second term. We know how that went down. We don't need to see it again. Let's move forward for a hopeful future, a joyful future, and one where all of us can thrive and succeed. Thank you so much, Kenya and Richard, for your excellent facilitation. And I look forward to seeing y'all out here getting these alley-oops together, these steals, and these blocks.
There you go. Didn't I say she was amazing? Didn't I say she was amazing?
Hashtag block that.
Block.
That's all I got on that one. And listen, I'm going to constantly be correcting misinformation that you hear out there. So one thing that we've heard folks say, Kenya, is that she's unqualified, she's incompetent, especially when it comes to our community. For folks who don't know, when she was the district attorney of San Francisco, Kamala Harris was the first person in the city of San Francisco to create a hate crime unit focused on prosecuting crimes against the LGBTQIA community, specifically focused on children and teens, but also on adults, especially on the transgender community in San Francisco. Another factoid for you. But I like Victoria. She did it for y'all. Block that.
Told you, Victoria's. I don't know. There's not enough good things I can say about Victoria. Block that. Come on, new hashtag.
Well, listen, there's something new on the screen. Tell us about what's happening new on the screen, my brother.
Yes. So we are working directly with the campaign to collect funds. So if you see on the bottom of the screen, CBE Political Action Fund.com, if you go to that website, you'll be able to donate directly to the campaign. You won't come to us. Look, all your 100% of your donations go straight to the campaign. So if you can, there's a website. We made it so easy for you, CBE Political Action Fund.com, and you can donate right to the directly to the Harris campaign to make sure that we have President Harris in office.
I love that, folks. So make sure you click that link below. And also, if you're on the chat and you haven't said anything, say something. We want to know where you are from. This call is literally going on in living rooms, on cell phones, on computers, all across the country. I saw some folks from Philly in here. I know DC is here. I saw San Francisco just a couple of seconds ago, South Carolina. Tell us where you're from. We want to know. New York. I saw the village of Harlem. Somebody called it the village. I mean, it's a little bit bigger than the village, but okay. Houston's in the house. It's good to see y'all. Charlotte, North Carolina. Montgomery, Alabama. There we go.
Yes. Come on, people. In here.
West Hollywood, baby.
Hollywood.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, Colorado, Texas, the Chi. Heading to Earl and myself will be heading. A lot of other folks on this call will be heading to Chicago in just a couple of days for the convention. Somebody's in a Walmart in Cleveland. Come through Walmart, listening in line at the Walmart. Louisiana, Minneapolis is in the house. I love this. I love it. Let's go on to our next speaker. I'm excited to introduce this person. He is a very good friend of mine. And last week, he added something new to his long resume of things. And that is best-selling author. And it's funny, the good Lord works in mysterious ways. Little did he know that he was writing a book about somebody that was actually going to be running for president of the United States, but he did. So without further ado, radio host, political journalist, and best-selling author. And I'm going to be prophetic and official, soon to be official Kamala Harris biographer. Dr. Nicolai Corte, how are you, brother?
I'm doing well, Richard, from your mouth to God's ears. It's really an honor to be here with each of you. I adore you. I adore Kenya. I adore Earl. And let me first start off by just saying how deep the love runs for Earl. I met Earl way back in 2007 doing LGBTQ activism work. Actually, it was 2008. It was after Prop 8 had passed in California. And the organizing work began to build a movement to repeal Proposition 8. And that was just one of many issues that we know were important to our communities. I know Earl to be a man of integrity. I know him to be about our community unapologetically. And so I bid him well in his next chapter. He ain't going nowhere. We ain't gonna let him go nowhere. But I hope you can feel the love, Earl. Some of us are operating in your legacy, and so many of us are better organizers and better public servants because you gave a damn. And so, salute to Earl. So, with that, are we going to have a conversation, or do you all want me to just share a little bit?
The floor is yours, my friend.
Sure. Well, I am really honored to be the conduit of an incredible story, Kamala, the Motherland. My new book is out. It's available on Amazon and Barnes & Nobles, Walmart.com, all the online retailers. I want to say thank you to all the folks out there who made it their business to pre-order this book and order this book and make it an Amazon bestseller. I think it's an amazing tool. As Richard has mentioned, and I appreciate, his real-time fact-checking and correcting the sort of misinformation and disinformation that exists out there about Vice President Harris. I was called really to write this book. I felt summoned because I believe there's so many assumptions out there about who Vice President Harris is and, what her leadership was like, that I decided to write this book to re-examine those assumptions, re-examine those assumptions about Vice President Harris of Africa and ourselves. Toni Morrison, Maya Angelou, James Baldwin, Bell Hooks. There are so many Black authors I've been inspired by my whole entire life. And it means so much to me to finally be able to join that club on that responsibility. And so in writing this book, I remembered something that Toni Morrison had said in an interview. She said, that when you read Tolstoy and some of the other greats, you didn't get the sense that they were talking directly to us. And so I'm talking directly to us in this book. There are so many stories that I share in this book, starting in Ghana, where that was our first stop on the trip. It's important that I share with you, what I witnessed on, people show you who they really are. When people show you who they really are, believe them the first time. And I've got to tell you, when we were in Ghana, there was a joint press conference with the Ghanaian president. Some of you may be familiar with the anti-LGBTQ bill that had been sweeping through. Questions around that bill came up on the trip by colleague Zolan Kano-Youngs over at the New York Times. Asked that question that many of us in the press corps had wanted to ask. And you should know, President Harris did not flinch in her response. When she says that LGBTQ rights are human rights, she means it. She means it when she says it in San Francisco. She means it when she says it in DC. She means it when she says it in Accra and anywhere else. She means it. And didn't seem to be feeling that. She stood firm. This is someone who I found to be transparent and trustworthy when it comes to her commitment to LGBTQ rights. When people ask me, what's your real take on the vice president, which is a little strange because I wrote a whole book about it. What do you think that is? It's real. But if I had to sum it up, I would say I found her to be competent. I found her to be cutting edge and capable of meeting. And, you all don't know what it feels like to share a story and then find that one of the subjects of that story then becomes the Democratic presidential nominee for president. I could not have imagined that this story would unfold. I know I almost dropped something too when I saw what had happened. But it's important that you all know who Vice President Harris is on the world stage, how she's received on the world stage, how young people received her, how committed she is to being a bridge across the diaspora and a bridge across the world. This vice president said often on the trip that by 2050, 1 in 4 people on the planet will reside in Africa. She also said, that the average age on the continent is 19. And right now, in this moment, when we see that 2/3 of the folks who have access to the internet, for example, on the continent are men and not women, right? We got to do something about that. That's not something that's just an issue in Africa. It's an issue here in the United States. It impacts us all. You know, the future of our economy across the diaspora will rely increasingly on digital technology. And this vice president gets it. We also have been talking a lot about Project 2025. There's a lot in that 900-page plan that reads more like a manifesto that's at odds with the values that I know we all share here. But it's important to know that in 2025, you know what also happens? The African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, expires in September 2025. A leader in the Oval Office that understands the role that Africa plays in terms of U.S. interests, in terms of supercharging the global economy, that's Vice President Harris. And you can't understand who she is. You can't understand what her foreign policy might look like. You don't know about the Africa trip. And so spread the word, go out and get Kamala, the motherland, and me. I believe in my bones. It's some of my best work. And I'm really excited that I get to share my very best with each and every one of you.
Kamala, the motherland, and me, and it was me dropping shit, so my apologies. Listen, so folks can get on Amazon. How can folks follow you and all the work that you're doing, Dr. Corte?
Yes, well, folks can tune in to my radio show on weekdays at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. It's called A More Perfect Union. It's executive produced by Tavis Smiley. And every day, from the White House to your house, we're providing you with the most important national political headlines, providing you with news, not noise, interviews with some of the leaders on the front lines that help us make it make sense. People like Minneapolis City Council member Andrea Jenkins, who was just on my show the day that the governor was announced as VP Harris. Download the KBLA app to listen to me live or on demand, or they can tell Alexa to play KBLA 1580. They can always subscribe to a More Perfect Union podcast and never miss an episode. And then, of course, follow me on all the social media platforms at Dr. Nicordoli.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for joining us this evening. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And good to see you. And congratulations to Kenya, our new fearless leader of Center for Black Equity. The love also runs deep with Kenya, and we're going to have Kenya's back because Kenya has had our back. And so I'm glad I could join you all for more. Much love to everybody.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So there was a question about Project 2025, and I dropped my laptop because I was over here making sure I had the answers. Like, I got to make sure I give people the answers, Kenya. So just a couple of things, and we will, like I said, could constantly be pushing out information so you know. So in the specifics now, to Dr. Corte's point, like he just said, I've read some of this stuff. I've read the immigration chapter and a couple of other chapters. This thing is dense.
Yeah.
And it's about 900 to 1,000 pages. But here's just some top things that you should know. The first thing that when it comes to our community specifically, and I think what makes this community so unique is that we live at this intersection between LGBTQ and being Black, and both communities are going to get hit like really bad Category 5 hurricanes. So this group, we're going to get with a Category 10 hurricane. So brace yourself if these guys win the presidency. So the first thing that it would do is it would ask the President of the United States to ignore a Supreme Court ruling which extended discrimination protections to the LGBTQIA community. The other thing it would do is would bar trans folks from serving in the military. It would reverse LGBTQ plus equity regulation at the Department of Health, at the Department of Human Services, at HUD, at other places. And I think more remarkably, I think this is something you all should remember. It will actually urge the Justice Department to defend Americans who commit hate crimes or use their First Amendment to attack people who are part of the LGBTQIA community. That's on top of the fact that for many regulations, it will erase Black from many regulations that currently have Black or minority set-asides or minority protections in it. So it's damaging on both sides. And remember, this comes at a time, Kenya, as you know, where all across the country, We're seeing bans on books. We're seeing people who are not allowed to put the pictures of their spouses or their loved ones or their partners up on their desk. So this is if Project 2025 goes into place, this will happen in a world in which state legislatures and many of the states that people already called off, Louisiana, Florida, South Carolina, where you're already seeing anti-LGBTQ bills, anti-African American bills. Some of these bills have already become law. So they're already telling you that slavery was beneficial in Florida. Add that to the fact that they're going to erase federal regulations to protect you. And Project 2025 can create a world of hurt, especially for our community. And we'll have more fact checking throughout the evening. And there's a whole conversation going on, and I love it, around Israel-Palestine and how it's affecting Black people here. And keep those conversations going in the chat. This is how we get energized as a community and have these informative conversations with each other. Next speaker, Kenya, tell us who we're talking to.
Yes. So we have another, and I feel like I say this, I'm going to be saying this for everybody, another legend here. From Minneapolis, we have none other than the one and only council member, Andrea Jenkins. You're on mute. There you go.
Wow, this call is so exciting. Hello, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of it. And congratulations to you, Kenya.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Andrea Jenkins, and as was stated, I'm the city council member in Minneapolis, one of the city council members in Minneapolis, and I'll just dispel a myth that's kind of going around that Governor Walz took too long to respond to the riots that emerged in Minneapolis after the murder of George Floyd. And I will say this. It was the riots were a result of police brutality, right? And so as leaders, as elected officials, we were very, very reluctant to implement even deeper police presence, right? Including the National Guard. So, it was actually an act of bravery to kind of try to let this thing play out, and before we increase the level of policing and police power, the police state, et cetera, et cetera. So don't let them fool you. And as Dr. Cordy said, I was on his show earlier this week. Really appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit about the Harris-Walz ticket, which I got to say I'm super, super excited about. But, I really don't think that Derek Chauvin and the other 3 officers that were involved in the murder of George Floyd would have gone to jail had not Governor Walz took the case from the county attorney and turned it over to the state attorney general, which is Keith Ellison. And that turned out to be the most important police conviction in our country thus far, because those 4 officers are sitting in jail right now as a direct result of the willingness of the governor to take the case away from the Hennepin County attorney, which is unprecedented, by the way, and turn it over to the state attorney general, who is an African-American man, Keith Ellison, whose brilliant prosecution put those folks in jail. So just clearing up a little of the misconceptions that are out there. last night, man, I had the honor and the pleasure to attend HRC sponsored rally for the Harris Walz ticket. And, you know, we had the president of the HRC organization, which I'm a board member of. Also, just want to state that I'm a board member of the Advocates for Transgender Equality, which is a merger of two national organizations, the Transgender Legal Education Defense Fund and the National Center for Transgender Equality. So we merged, and I was there representing the Advocates for Transgender Equality. And I shared this poem last night with the group, and I want to share it with you guys tonight. It's called Heavy Breathing, Sunset over Lake Bidet, Makaska. And what you need to know about Lake Bidet, Makaska is that it used to be called Lake Calhoun. It was named after John C. Calhoun, who was Vice President of the United States, a slave owner, a very vicious slave owner. And we, as a city, took the name off of that lake and renamed it its original Native American name, Lake Bidet Makaska. The poem starts with an epigraph. If they come for me in the morning, they will come for you in the night. Anonymous. The purple one still matters. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here tonight to get through this thing called life. This we accomplish through song. Songs of sadness and joy, songs of hope and love, pain and trauma. We sing with our hearts, pouring out like a soaking spring rain. We sing with our voices, reaching upwards towards some yet unseen force, some energy greater than what we possess. Searching for the answers to the inherent injustices that we encounter each and every day. We are on a journey to disarm hate, and we won't go back. That's the intersectional mantra, linking all liberation movements, connecting the personal to the political. It's how the murder of George Floyd is related to the erosion of a woman's right to choose her own destiny, of LGBTQIA plus folks' right to love who they want to love. It's how society is lulled into slumber while genocide and dictators persist. What is your response to love right now? And yes, Pride has a song. It's Sara Ramirez singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow. It's Lady Gaga singing I Was Born This Way. It's Elton John singing I'm still standing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sing with me, sing for the year, sing for the laughter, sing for the tears. Sing with me just for today, maybe tomorrow the good Lord take you away. Hey, hey. At the end of Heavy Breathing, while watching the sun setting over Lake Bidet Makaska, I remember Essex Hempel said, nationalism disillusioned me. You want me to sing, We Shall Overcome? Who will be responsible for the destruction of human love? At the end of heavy breathing, after the sun has laid down for the night, a song of redemption remains. One love. Thank you, everybody. I made my donation. We all got to raise money. We got to get out here and knock on these doors. We got to make phone calls. We got to attend rallies like this one tonight on Zoom, in person. You can organize your families. You can organize your friends, your sorority and fraternity brothers. Everybody needs to be all hands on deck, as Earl started us off. And I love you all sincerely. Thank you so much for including me, and peace.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrea. So many things you just dropped. Like, I wrote it down as they come for you in the morning, they'll come for you at night. That wasn't a word. You're a mute, Ricky.
I was trying not to drop anything. I'm still stuck on Elton. I'm still stuck on Elton John. I'm still standing. And we're still standing, y'all. Like, I mean, that's a thing. And like, we should acknowledge the fact that after all of the attacks against our community, especially, like I said before, the intersections that we all live at, Councilmember Jenkins, we're still standing. That's an amazing thing.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. And as council member said, you know, by visiting the link down below, CBE Political Action Fund, you can donate directly to Harris campaign, as well as you can find information about phone banking, and you can find out how to volunteer, right? Be able to get out there, just like she said, get out there, knock on the doors, really mobilize your community. All the information you can be found at cbepoliticalactionfund.com.
I love that. And listen, because we just heard from somebody from Minneapolis, let's correct some misinformation about Governor Tim Walz.
There we go.
So there's the thing that's going out there now, being pushed out by Donald Trump's running mate, is that Tim Walz did not, like, he retired before his army unit deployed to Iraq because he knew his unit was going and he didn't want to go. That's actually false. Here is the truth. He submitted his retirement months before it was even known that his particular National Reserve unit was actually going to be deployed. And he retired in May. His unit didn't end up going until that summer. And the reason why he retired, which I think actually matters, is he retired because he was going to run for Congress. He was going to run in a district that had been represented by Republicans for decades. Not only did he run, but he won that district. Later went on to be the governor of Minnesota. So the misinformation out here is flying fast and loose, and we're going to correct as much of it as we can over the next couple of hours. And I'm happy to do it, because I think if we're not correcting this misinformation, then this misinformation will get into our communities, and we are the trusted messengers. We are the cavalry. So we've got to continue. When you hear something that doesn't sound too right, be like, wait a minute, and follow the folks who are out there correcting misinformation.
Mm-hmm.
One, as you know, Councilwoman Jenkins just corrected misinformation. Dr. Nicola Corte corrected misinformation. Victoria Kirby York corrected misinformation. So follow all of those people throughout this election. They are going to do their darnest. And I will be correcting misinformation. Kenya will be correcting misinformation. We're going to do our darnest to correct as much misinformation that's out there, because there's going to be a lot of it. But I just wanted to drop that nugget on you. Who's our next speaker?
So another person who everyone should know, former teacher, community leader, community organizer from my home state of New York, Miss Carmen Neely.
Harlem, stand up.
You're mute, Carmen. You're mute.
Here we go. Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing?
We're good. Harlem, stand up. What's up, Harlem?
That's right. Harlem is in the house. Thank you all so much for having me. This is a very, very important election for all of us this year, as every election is important. But I want to kick us off by starting to talk about some of the numbers. And what are those numbers? So our vote is important because if we look at 2020, there were 9 million LGBTQ registered voters. Now, this is according to UCLA's Williams Institute. but only 13% of those 9 million voters were Black. We have to fix that. That 13% amounts to approximately 1.1 million people. So we have some work to do. All right. And the thing about that is, as we can increase our registered voter numbers and actually get them out to the polls to vote, or via mail, however we do it, but get that vote done, we can collectively sway the vote toward one candidate or the other. So, for example, in the last presidential election, some states, in terms of their electoral votes, it was only a margin of 12,000 votes or less. So if we have about 1.1 million people registered, but we're only 13% of the 9 million registered LGBTQ people, then we can definitely improve upon that 13% when we're approximately 14.1% of the total US population. So that 1.1% represents at least another million people that we can get signed up to vote. So we got to get people out there. Another thing that we need to do in terms of strategies, Victoria mentioned a vote plan. We need to help our friends, family, community members create a voting plan. That means making sure you understand the voting rules in your area, because we live in different states, different cities within those states. There may be slightly different rules, IDs, and things. You know they're going to create hurdles for us. So make sure you're prepared so you can get over those hurdles. And this definitely means double checking your registrations. We've all heard of how registrations have been purged from the list, and you think you're registered and you go to vote. Oh, we don't see your name. Double check your registration and do it before the registration deadline. So if there are any issues, you can fix that. We also need to assist any of our community members that may have mobility issues. Help them vote early, help them vote by mail, whatever needs to happen. And our newly eligible voters, our 18-year-olds, or the ones that are going to turn 18 years old this year, help them complete the registration process. Check in with your friends, your family, your community members. Also, for those of us that are involved in organizations, pair up, collaborate, get together with the NAACP in your area, get together with the equality of state organizations or whoever else is registering people to vote and are aligned with whatever your missions are. Get together, make it a team effort, get it done. Now, we talked a little bit about Project 25. 2025, there is so much at stake. So, for example, just to go over some of the things, I know they were mentioned, but the elimination of the Department of Education. That scares me as a retired teacher. I taught high school and middle school in 1 year of first grade, that I could write a book about just that 1 year of first grade for 15 and a half years here in New York City. The elimination of the Department of Education would have tragic effects upon the students in our country and what they learn and how they learn and what's tested, what's not tested, who's passed and from grade to grade, who gets to graduate, etc. It would just have across the country tragic consequences. Then they're going to try to reverse student loan relief. Now, you know, some people have had into the 6 digits for student loans and paying the interest, and the interest keeps adding up. You end up paying significantly more than your loan ever was. We need help with that. They also intend on weaponizing the federal government against political opponents and taking control of the FBI. So that basically means if you don't like what I say and you don't like what I do, if I'm in control, then I can just change it. I can put you out, and there are no balances of power. In addition to those things, they also plan to implement mass deportations, including ICE raids in schools, churches, and hospitals. So you already know it's hard enough for people of color to even get into this country, let alone mass deportations. You know who they're sending home first. That's a no-brainer. And of course, something that means very much to us, they're going to gut protections for LGBTQ people across the board. We already see issues with gender affirming care being cut, general cuts to Medicaid, Medicare, our elderly not being able to afford prescriptions, and just across the board, any of us that have any kind of diseases not being able to afford prescriptions. And then they're talking about imposing work requirements on Medicaid recipients. Moving on to removing access to abortions, gender affirming care again, and reproductive health care, limits overall to what is covered by the Affordable Care Act. And then if we talk about our environment, they're talking about reversing President Biden's climate change protections, and withdrawing the United States from the Paris Climate Accord. So our vote is important. Our vote is necessary, and we need to do everything we can do to get our people to the polls and make sure your vote counts, get people registered, and there's just too much that could go by the wayside. I also want to speak a little bit about the Israel, Palestine, Gaza thing. That genocide is not the only genocide, and any genocide is horrible. But elect someone who's going to try to find an equitable solution to what is going on. And when, that's right, not if, but when the current vice president, who is Kamala Harris, is in the president's office, I am feeling 100% sure that something will get worked out, because these are people's families that are dying left and right. And for what? For what? That's a whole nother conversation, because a lot could be said about that, but I wanted to touch base on it. So this vote, our vote, is important. The election is important. All of it is important, and we have to make our voices heard. And the way we can do that is to get out and vote, make sure we help our family, friends, and community do the same. Put Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz in the White House. You can also donate and volunteer. If you want to volunteer, there's a link on the KamalaHarris.com website. You can also donate there, but you can donate by looking at the bottom of your screen. And thank you so much to Kenya, to Earl, and to Richard for their facilitation and hosting this. And I want to give a shout out to HU, and of course, my dollars are pink and green. And I'm going to say that 1908 every week. Here we go. Let's get it done. Let's go. Vote. Make sure you help your family, friends, and community members do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. And listen, to check your voter registration, go to vote.org and check your voter reg and do it. Listen, if you are watching this, you're on a phone or a computer, which means you could check your voter registration right now. And check it now so you have some time to fix it. Don't check it the day before the election, y'all. That's how they get you. And trust me, if you live in a state where there have been laws passed since the last election, so I'm talking to folks in Georgia, Mississippi, South Carolina, Florida, that made it harder for you to vote, or places where they try to purge the voting rolls, go check your voter registration now so you have some time to either re-register, or there's a recourse for you to make sure that you can vote in this election, because your vote is going to matter in this election. Every vote will count. Remember, Joe Biden won Georgia by 11,000 votes. There was a call about it. Remember that part? Anyway, Kenya, you hang in there. We just got to the first hour. We have one more hour left.
I know. This is great.
I feel like I'm on a PBS telethon, People remember those.
I don't know if people remember those. I remember those. I used to love them. I was a little kid. Anyway. If you visit CBEPoliticalActionFund.com and you click on My Voice, My Vote, that's another location you can check your voter registration status. You can register to vote. You can sign up to also find out elections going on, get election reminders, and a whole slew. We have a whole voter hub set up there. So all these resources are great. So the next person up on the list is someone I've known for many, many, many years. Gosh. A long time, a very long time. One of the first people I met when I moved to DC, working in community, doing some great work. Now he is a representative from the Texas House of Representatives, HD 100, Mr. Venton C. Jones.
Benton.
Hey, you're on mute.
You're on mute, Benton.
Uh-oh.
We can't hear you. Hold on.
No.
Maybe.
Testing. Am I there?
We got you, Benton.
Hey. All right.
How are you,
Oh man, that was about to be embarrassing. Thank you so much to you, Kenyon, but also to Earl, because my story would not be possible without the two of you. And before I, talk about the candidates that we have for this election, I want to tell a little bit about what brought me here as far as being a state representative, because many of you have known and seen my work in addressing the HIV/AIDS epidemic. And so part of why I'm here is that when we look at what happened, particularly during COVID, and the amount of violence that happened to not only Black communities, but specifically Black LGBTQ people, Dallas was ground zero for the murders that happened to Black trans women. And we needed leadership that was going to make sure to protect those communities. What we saw, particularly in state government, was Republican leaders that were working trying to put bathroom bans, trying to harm the ability for LGBTQ children to have the health care that they need, and so many heinous issues, in which so much so we had over 144 harmful LGBTQ bills in just one legislative session alone. And so when I looked at that and I understood the importance of something that, and I'm so happy to see Victoria here representing the National Black Justice Coalition, because it was the words of Sharon Letman Hicks that rung through my head when it was time for me to run for office. And that was own your power. And it was also words that another mentor told me, Kirk Myers, that no one was going to be here to save us. And we had to create a plan to save ourselves. And so when I moved back to my hometown of Dallas, Texas, I moved back and really started to get involved in the democratic process, not knowing that that would eventually lead to me being a state representative. I worked to become a precinct chair so I could understand the needs of my neighborhood. I worked to ultimately become an election judge, where I was helping to support making sure that folks not only were coming to the ballots, but also had no problems at polling locations. And ultimately, I got the amazing opportunity once now Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett took the opportunity to run for Congress, to run for the seat in House District 100 to continue the strong representation of dynamic, fierce Democratic leaders in the Texas State House. And it's crazy that I'm now approaching my second term. There was a lot of things that we had to deal with during the 88th regular session and 4 special sessions, particularly for LGBTQ people. We had the gender affirming care bill, in which we had over 2,000 people to come in and have their votes and say that they did not want this legislation, but still this legislation was railroaded. We had bills that would try to put people at their gender at birth into prison communities when it wasn't even needed in the state of Texas. We had bills that were banning books that told the true and authentic stories of Black people, of LGBTQ people, and specifically Black LGBTQ people, and those things were under attack. And so as we go into this next legislative session, and as we go into this next presidential administration, we need leaders who are going to fight for our communities, not fight with the people who are going to double down on the issues that I just talked about. Because what happened, and I want to first and foremost give a shout out to the South, for everybody that's representing in Southern states. I want to give a shout out to you all, because we talk so much about what's happening at the national level, but it's those state legislative bodies, those local communities that we also have to make sure to cover and protect. And that starts off with the top of the ticket, because we know that the next presidential administration will have 1 or 2 Supreme Court picks. We know that organizations like ALEC are going to continue to push legislation, not only in the state of Texas, but in Florida, Tennessee, Louisiana, and other southern states, and across this country, that's going to continue to harm Black and LGBTQ people. And we have to make sure that we have the people that's going to be in there, particularly Kamala Harris, that's going to fight for our communities right now. And that is so critical right now, because regardless of who wins the presidency, we know in our southern states, this is still going to be an uphill battle to continue to fight for our community. And so I am so excited that we have a presidential candidate, Kamala Harris, that's going to be somebody that's going to continue to fight for us, versus Donald Trump, who is not only a felon, but who continues to lie and who continues to say anything, and I mean anything, to be able to win this race. And so I just want to again say thank you so much for this. And I want to end with just a couple of strategies that we have. One, we have to understand that it is important that we use these next 88 days to make sure that we're not only engaging ourselves to vote, but like Victoria said, we are creating vote plans that's utilizing not only our own individual influence, but whatever organizations that you are a part of, fraternities, sororities, community groups, churches, you're using all of that energy to be able to make sure that folks are getting registered to vote, and then going back to those individuals to make sure that they actually get out to vote and understand how critical these issues are. And I know that we say this all the time, that every election is critical, but this election is so critical because we even have a candidate in Donald Trump who continues to say, if you just come out and vote for me this one time, you will never have to vote again. And we know what that means. We know that if he gets in there, he does not want to get out, because he didn't want to get out this last time. And we have to make sure that he gets out and stays out. And we put Kamala Harris in to be our next president. And so I'm so excited to join in with you in unison to make sure that we're supporting Kamala Harris, and we're also making sure that most importantly, we're fighting for democracy right now. So again, thank you so much to the Center for Black Equity for hosting this important dialogue. And I am fired up and I'm ready to go. Let's do this on November the 5th.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Are the rest of y'all fired up? Because I'm fired up.
I'm totally fired up. Now, Benton, before you go, I have a question for you, because there's so many folks in this chat. You made the choice to put your name on the ballot. It's one of the bravest decisions that you made. Yeah, put them glasses on, because we want to make sure we hear the answer to this question, right? So what, for the folks who are in this chat who are thinking about putting their name on the ballot, what does it mean to have somebody who looks like you, who loves like you in the legislature?
Well, I think it's critical. And one thing that I did not mention, and sometimes I underspeak this, but my election made it to where I was the first openly Black state legislator openly living with HIV. And that's important because it was something that had to be done, because I had 2 particular bills that were particularly working to address and improve routine HIV testing. Did you know that some of my colleagues did not even know that, assume that there was 2 different tests for HIV and AIDS? And those are the people that have to make, that have to make our laws. And one thing that's a positive about that is that having the opportunity to be able to tell my story on the House floor changed hearts and changed minds. So all of the pieces of legislation I had, even though I'm so fortunate that it had the opportunity to get off of the House floor, didn't ultimately pass, but it had bipartisan support. And that is so critical. And it was instrumental to be able to be there and to be able to share my story. What I will also say is that I was scared shitless when I was getting ready to run for office. And I am so thankful for the community that wrapped themselves around me, because at a very early point in my life and career, when I dedicated myself to be able to do this work for Black LGBTQ people, to do this work to end HIV, I thought there were certain doors that were closed to me. And it has been such an amazing experience to be able to come out and be exactly who I am as a state representative, and still be impactful. And so I say to anyone that is sitting on the fence thinking about, should I do this? The answer is absolutely yes. Because again, no one is going to be out here to save us. And we have to be able to get out there and share our stories, and to be able to really do the work, because it's not just about me being a Black LGBTQ person. The House district that I represent is home for me. So when I look out of my door across the street, I see a constituent, and that constituent is my grandmother. When I look in the other direction down the street, I see my aunt's house. When I look in another direction, I see a cousin's house. So this work is not just about representing these, constituents. They are people. They are people that need to be served and need to be represented. And we are the key to be able to do that work. So I think that if anyone is thinking about that, I wholeheartedly encourage you to hit the gas and be able to do that, and lean on organizations like the Center for Black Equity, like Victory Fund, and those other organizations that are helping to uplift Black LGBTQ candidates to be able to get in their races and win.
Thank you, Venton. Thanks for joining us tonight. We appreciate you, brother. Continue doing that work in Texas, where we need you more than ever.
Thank you so much. God bless y'all.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
I mean, the aha moment there for me, and it's a sad one. There were members of the Texas State Legislature that thought there were different tests for HIV and AIDS. Now, here's a problem. They're writing laws, though, Kenya.
Yeah, that's the scary part.
They're writing laws. Which is why, like, when you go vote, y'all, do your research, as Carmen said earlier, and know what's on the ballot below just Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz. Like, do the research, see what's happening below the ballot, because it's real.
Yeah. Learn about people like Venton that's on the ballot and why you should vote for Venton, and people. Because
the state legislature, there's a lot of things that the state legislature can do, and your school board can do, and your city council can do that can make your life better, or that can make your life worse.
Yep.
And in many states and in many cities, in this moment, there's a lot of things that are making our life worse and not better.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So the next person we have joining us is someone that I've had the pleasure of working with and organizing Black LGBTQ, making sure we have a Black LGBTQ space at the DNC convention coming up in a few weeks. We've been on the phone, we've been texting, we've been emailing nonstop. This individual has been putting everything in making sure we have a space. The social justice consultant from United Strategies Group, Colby Gardner.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Thank you so much, Kenya. Thank you, Richard, and thank you, Earl, for all the amazing work that you all do to uplift the Black LGBT community. It's a pleasure to be here with you all this evening. As we stand on the brink of one of the most consequential elections in our lifetime, and it feels like we're saying that every 4 years, but this time it really is that. The significance of this moment cannot be overstated. We have just 88 days away from determining the future of our country, and the stakes are particularly high for the Black LGBT community, and we all know that. This election is not just about choosing our leaders, it's about defending our rights and our freedoms and our future from a group that wants to take us back to a time before when we had rights, before we could advocate for the future that we all want to see. And we all know that the Black LGBT community has been at the forefront of the struggle for justice and equality. I think back to the Stonewall Inn, where our trans sisters threw that brick to ensure that we could start the movement for pride, to defend our most basic rights, to exist in happiness and peace with one another. I'm encouraging everybody to vote, most importantly, for Harris and Walz upcoming November, because we understand that the Trump-Vance administration would just roll us back into a time that we all just don't want to see. We understand that this next president has the opportunity to appoint at least 2 Supreme Court justices, and we've seen what this court has done during this particular administration, and we don't want to see that happen again. In the coming weeks, our coalition is doubling down on our efforts to educate and mobilize voters. We're working to make sure that every member of our community, from the ballroom community to our fraternities and sororities to our neighborhood groups, to make sure that every person understands where our candidates stand on these critical issues. It's not just enough to hope for change. We must actively work towards it. We're organizing forums, we're distributing resources, and we're hosting discussions to break down the policies that will shape our future. We want to make sure that we are equipping everyone with the knowledge that they need to make those informed decisions at the ballot box. But our work doesn't just stop with education. We need to activate every single person in our networks, our friends, our families, our neighbors. This is a moment where silence is just not an option. We must educate and inspire and necessarily push those around us to register, to vote early, and to vote with the full weight of our community's needs in mind. Every conversation, every text, every social media post can be a catalyst for change. And let's not forget that the power of our vote extends beyond just our individual rights. It's about protecting the very foundation of democracy, the right to privacy, the right to bodily autonomy, the right to freedom, the right to live authentically as ourselves is on the line. And this is about standing up against forces that seek to roll us back. And again, I want to end here on a note of optimism, because despite the challenges, we have the power to create a massive blue wave this fall that will sweep our nation. Our collective action in these final 88 days can turn the tide. We've done it before down in Georgia, where no one saw us flipping Georgia. It hasn't been done since 1992. We did it in 2020, 2022, and we're going to come back and do it again in 2024. We're going to do all that we can to flip those battleground states, because we want a future where justice and equality and freedom are not just aspirations, but realities. And it's within our grasp if we can all just participate in this electoral process. So I encourage each of you to stay engaged, stay informed, and stay relentless in these final weeks. I'm working across a series of organizations, doing grassroots work to make sure that we can get out the vote and do that voter education this fall. And for all those folks coming to Chicago for the DNC, I've been working tirelessly with Kenya and Earl to make sure that we have a space just for us during the DNC with Black electeds, community activists, and of course our DNC delegates, to really have a really good conversation about how we're going to move this party and this country forward to make our voices heard. And so, of course, elect Kamala Harris as the next president of the United States. And I want to thank you again so much, Kenya, for this opportunity to speak to this crowd today, and happy to be here with y'all.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, you're on mute.
We appreciate you more than you know, brother. Thank you for your work. I'm not trying to drop something again. Listen, that was like the drop heard around the world. So, so I'm trying to, mind myself. But thank you, brother, for your work. We appreciate it. Kenya, are you alive over there? This is exciting. I love the chat. The chat is fired up right now, and it's really, really dope. I mean, I'm watching the chat on my other screen. Folks are fired up. People are looking to see each other. The DNC, the right
sharing
to
resources. People are sharing resources. All kinds of resources being shared in the chat.
Yeah, listen, I want to jump off the screen and jump into the chat. How good the chat's going right now. And listen, this is what this call is about, to create community all across the country. And beyond that, we have to make the elections cost money. And to organize our community costs money. So what can folks do to be part of that, Kenya?
Visit CBE Political Action Fund.com. Real easy, real simple, CBE Political Action Fund.com. You can go there, you can find information on how to donate to the Harris campaign, how to volunteer, how to do phone banking. Also check your voter registration information. All the resources are right there, CBE Political Action Fund.com.
I love it. I love it. And who's the next speaker?
So the next speaker is, we was in Texas with Benton, and we're going to swing back to Texas again. We have all the way from Harris County, the presiding judge of Harris County elections, Mr. John Humphreys.
Houston in the house.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Good
evening.
My name is John Humphreys. I am the presiding judge of elections for Houston Harris County, also a political strategist. I look at the name that you all gave us. I love it. I love it. And one of the main aspects of it that stands out to me is ally. Here in in Houston, we lost one of our greatest ally, and that is Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. I would like to pay tribute to her and thank her for being an ally. She was an ally to our community when it wasn't popular to be an ally. She was an ally seeking the LGBT community endorsement when it wasn't popular. Unlike now, you can't even run for office without having an LGBT endorsement somewhere, and what have you. So my hat, and I salute my queen, and I say rest in peace, Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. And with that being said, let's talk about electing Vice President Harris. Let's talk about that. Even though we have a wonderful top of the ticket candidates, we have to look at the down ballot. But before I move forward, that I'm going to go back to Vinton. I call him Baby Vinton because I remember him back in the day, just all over the place. I want to also share with you all, Vinton served in one of the most probably racist and in my opinion just crazy, batshit crazy legislature. You all do not know, but the state of Texas, those idiots passed a law, okay, around voting. And that law only applies to the city of Houston and Harris County. It only applies, okay? So so they know that the city of Houston has enough votes to literally turn Texas blue. And because of that, those idiots have created all type of legislation that is targeting Houston, Harris County. And with me serving as the election judge, this is something that we have to maneuver very, very, very carefully, to where we don't give them a reason to say, I'm going to come in and take over you all's process. So we are literally tiptoeing around this idiotic legislation that is in place. So I want to give kudos to Vinton. Keep that fight, keep the good fight, and hopefully we'll be able to reverse that. So let's talk about getting Vice President Harris elected. Advocacy is one of the main things that stands out to me, and when I say that, I mean around meaningful community engagement. 9 out of 10 times, the individuals that are going out to the polling locations don't have any idea as far as down ballot goes. We have judges, we have sheriffs, we have county clerks, we have all of these individuals that affect our everyday lives. I mean, every day, literally. But 9 out of 10 times, those individuals are going to the polling locations and they don't have a clue. They only see the top of the ballot. And that's something that we on this call have to educate individuals. And one of the main things, I think it was Carmen that hit on, was the mail-in ballot. The mail-in ballot is primarily our elderly population. And from a election judge perspective, we are kicking out hundreds of votes because of simple mistakes, such as signatures, such as they didn't put their driver's license on it. They didn't put the last 4 of the social on it. They're looking for reasons to kick our vote out. And it literally sickens me every election cycle that I am looking at these ballots and I have to kick them out because of those simple reasons. So I say to those that work in any capacity as it relates to the voting process, as well as you and your parents that is out there voting, please make sure they fill out that mail-in ballot in its entirety, so that we do not lose a vote. And going back to the polling locations. I think it's very important for those of us that is around the community engagement level, that we need to make sure that we empower the community by hiring people from our community to work these different polling locations. And then may I add, please pay the people well. Please pay them well, because here in Houston, these people sometimes are standing out in 100-degree weather. The sun is beaming down on them. And for them to be out there, sometimes 12 hours, our polling locations is usually 12 hours. And for someone to stand out there 12 hours to push to advocate and pass out a push card, that is a lot. And I say pay them well, pay them extremely well, for those of you that are empowered to do so. And one other thing that we have done here in Houston Harris County area is that we've gotten with other Black elected officials, and we specifically have fundraisers along with the Democratic Party to raise money to target the Black community. Now, I know you all don't have the problem, and we're barely having the problem, that Democratic Party, don't pay attention to us. I don't know about that, but that may exist and it may not exist. I'm not sure. But anyway, the whole point of that is to raise funds to target our community, and then possibly get the Democratic Party, whether the state level or either the local level, to match any and all monies that was raised to specifically target those populations. And some of the items that I just discussed, like the polling locations and hiring different workers to work those polling locations, and to make sure that they are played and that they are paid well. That is so key to me, that these individuals are doing it and doing it well, in my opinion, as well too. And again, the down ballot, we have to make sure that we get those individuals in those down ballots, because number one, let's talk about the judges, for instance. The judges that are elected in those down ballots, the different decisions that they make, 9 out of 10 times, especially on the criminal level, it's going to affect individuals that look like you and me. So it is so important. It is so important to get a judge elected that look like you and I, so that if you are going in front of them, and God knows, I hope you don't ever have to, or maybe family members or whomever, they will see someone that look like them. For the longest here in Harris County, we did not have that testimony, but now we do. We have, I would say, over 80% of our judges now are sitting on the benches are people of color, and also female as well too. So we're doing it. It's working. The down ballot do work, and we need you all to help with that down ballot. And not only with the down ballot, it is also helping the top of the ticket as well too. So it is working. It is working together, basically. But 9 out of 10 times, what I'm saying, the individuals will go in and vote for the president and what have you, and move on. We don't want that. We have to encourage them to vote that entire ballot. And with that being said, I do thank you all for your time, and I thank Earl, Kenya, and Richard for the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Judge.
And listen, I think you dropped some gems there, Judge, that folks should be paying attention to. When you fill out your absentee ballot, make sure you read the instructions first. This is not like an Amazon delivery package where you just think I can put it together myself. Like, actually read the instructions. What he told you was informative. They're kicking ballots out, and there's nothing that he could do about it. It's the laws that many of these states have that says, oh, they didn't have the exact match signature. They didn't have all the last four of the social, or they left one letter off the address, and that invalidates that ballot. So make sure you fill out your ballot completely. Make sure you use the right color pencil or pen. Judge, all reasons why they could invalidate your ballot. Am I lying?
Oh God! Oh my God! Yes, and I have another example. In one of our trainings, they look at signatures. Now, none of us are any type of signature expert. Come on now, and so I had individuals of the opposite party that had magnifying glasses looking at signatures, right? And one of the trainings that we went to, they had 3 signatures, and the signatures were from President Joe Biden, right? It was 3 different signatures that we was given as a example of saying, to rule off the signature, right? So as we went through the process and everybody chose a signature, at the end of the day, it said that all 3 of them was his signatures. All 3 of them.
Oh, wow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. All 3 was his signatures. And so you can't do that. And so they're using all type of tactics in order to disqualify a vote. And it's ridiculous.
And listen, that tells you, for all those folks who in your community, if you listen to this call, I know you voting, so I'm not even worried about you. But for the folks in your community, say my vote don't count. If your vote didn't count, they wouldn't be trying to take it away from you.
Exactly.
That part.
Exactly.
Thank you, Judge Humphrey. We appreciate you,
No
brother.
problem.
Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just a
You
thing. I mean, this is
also-
the argument that I hear all the time. My vote don't count.
Yeah.
But I'm like, but they're trying to do everything possible to make you not vote.
Right. If it didn't count, why would they do that? Right? They would ignore it. Y'all, we got word that the site, CBE Political Action Fund, has gotten so many hits it crashed for a little bit, but it is back up again. It is up and running again. Thank you all so much for visiting, for donating, and for signing up, and really checking out the site. Thank you all so much.
I love it. They crashed the site. That's what I call progress. That's what I call enthusiasm. That's what I call enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Who is our next speaker, Brother Kenya?
So next up, we have from the DNC, which we're going to see next week. Everyone hears everything about the DNC. But we're going to bring the Black Coalition Director of the DNC.
Hey y'all, thank you so much, Kenya and Richard. I'm actually at the national party, at the DNC, Democratic National Committee, not convention, but we'll be there next week. Super excited about convention. As I mentioned, I'm the Black Coalition Director. So my entire job is focused on engaging Black people in our party and in this election. Want to say hello to Chair Fowlkes, our wonderful LGBTQ caucus chair, and to my friend Dr. Nikordelai, and shameless plug. I had the pleasure of also being on that trip to Ghana as Nikordelai is writing his book, and super excited to have my copy. I think I wanted to start with kind of sharing a personal story about who our presidential nominee is. I think everyone has shared so many great nuggets. There's like such a wealth of knowledge and expertise. Everyone is saying all of the right things, y'all. We need to lean in this election. There is so much at stake. But who our candidate is, I actually had the honor and privilege and pleasure of working for the VP in 2019 during her first presidential run. And one of the things that I think really speaks to her character as a leader, just the way that she truly, I think, shows compassion and empathy in everything that she does. She dropped out December 3rd in 2019. I remember the day like it was yesterday. And I remember, the call that she had with our entire staff across all of the states on a day that I'm letting y'all know right now, if I was experiencing that in her shoes, I would not be wanting to talk to staff, would probably be in a hole somewhere. And yet, she thought it not robbery to kind of convene a call with all of our staff nationwide And she made a commitment that, in that day and the days to follow, that very first week after she dropped out, that she was going to come and personally thank our staff for the work, the time, everything that we had put into the campaign. And so that night she visited our campaign office, our headquarters in Baltimore. The next day she went to Iowa and South Carolina, Nevada, and California. This is the day after, 2 days after the day of that she dropped out of the presidential race. To put herself in a position where she is, having to kind of relive and open, wound, all of that, I think really speaks to her character, right? A part of, that decision, I know, was rooted in wanting to ensure that, we were as staff, we were paid through the end of the year, something that many campaigns, many leaders don't do. We had health insurance through the next year. In terms of who we have as a candidate across so many issues, I think she comes first seeing each and every one of us as individuals, as people deserving of dignity, of respect. I think that's something, especially as folks identifying, I think the young kids call it the alphabet mafia. But if you're a part of this community, that level of respect, that level of being treated with dignity, being respected, being seen as a person is so important. And that's who our vice president, or soon to be president, is. And I think she has made a wonderful selection in Governor Walz. Back in the 90s, as football coach, veteran, at the time, he's in the National Guard, being the faculty advisor for the Gay Straight Alliance at his high school, protecting, and providing himself as a cover for LGBTQ youth. Those are the folks that we are electing. And I think there is no greater contrast to that than Joe Biden and JD Vance. And so I know a ton of folks have already said it, and I don't want to belabor the point. There is not just a lot at stake in this election. The contrast is very clear. We know the intentions of the other side, but there's also a lot to gain. This administration, currently the Biden-Harris administration, is the most diverse administration in history. In terms of race, in terms of gender, in terms of LGBTQ awareness. There have been so many historic firsts, and we know that VP Harris and Governor Walz will continue that. And it's not just about being in the room, right? Some of the appointments, right? The Secretary Buttigieg, serving in his position as Secretary of Transportation, being an openly a gay man, having the first, trans woman, serve in a high-level cabinet position, that will continue, right? And this administration and VP Harris will continue, I think, to not just have us in the room, but to put us as decision makers, to put us as folks who are a part of the conversation and the decisions that are being made. We also, there's so much more to go. I think I was, been listening and watching the comments, and folks have been, having a lot of good points, right? As we're seeing, in certain states, them roll back protections, in Florida with Don't Say Gay, in the similar bills in other states with the book bans. We also know that, right, that in one instance, we have a party and candidates that are trying to take us back. And on the other end, right, we have folks like Governor Walz, who is leading the nation in providing childcare and paid leave and, free menstrual products and bathrooms, small things like that, right? Where we really truly know that the progress that we're looking for is achievable, and we have to work towards it. And so, we will talk a lot because the other side is crazy, and we will talk a lot about the craziness on the other side. But I also don't want us to lose sight of what we have to gain, of what we can, as VP says, right, being unburdening ourselves from what has been and seeing what can be. And the last thing I'll say is this campaign you know, is more than about just being better than Donald Trump. And the bar is in hell, lower than in hell with Donald Trump, right? You know, it's not just about that. We don't have to just be better than him. We have to provide a vision of what we can, what America can, how can America can be better, right? What we can do to better this country, to better ourselves. And I think that's where, you know, in my role, I'm leaning into, right, is what positive vision, you know, for those folks and my family and my friend groups, folks online, you know, when I come across them who are saying, you know, I'm not really sure, you know, whatever their issue is, and they're on the fence and they're thinking about staying home or voting third party, whatever it is, you know, we can talk about, you know, the other side, and there's a lot of ammo, but you know, we're not just better than Trump. We also have a better vision. We have a better plan, and we're fighting for a better America, and that's it. You know, one of the things that you know, VP Harris back in 2019, one of our taglines for our LGBTQ program, it was fearless, right? And so I'll leave y'all with that. We got 80 something days. Time isn't real. It's been a crazy 3 weeks. So I know we're 10 days away from convention, about 80 something odd days away from election day. In many states, early voting is going to start in about a month. Absentee ballots will start going out in about a month. And so it's going to require us to be fearless. They are already pulling out all types of just disgusting, nasty, racist tactics to discourage, to scare us, to you know, leave us disheartened. But you know, as VP is a joyful warrior, so are we. We're going to be fearless in this thing. We're going to win because all of us are here together fighting towards a common goal. And you know, November is just the start, right? We're going to have 4 years of working with this administration to ensure that our priorities are focused, that our communities as Black people, as LGBTQ folks, you know, that we are a part of the conversation, that we're a part of the decisions being made. You know, cannot stress enough, you know, that we should continue post November to be a part of these conversations, to join calls like this, to be a part of the work that CBE Action is doing. I know some of my colleagues are going to be on, Sam, Ryan, and they'll probably talk about some more specific ways to get involved with the campaign if you're interested, knocking doors, making phone calls, you know, buying snacks, whatever the case is. There are a ton of ways to get involved, a ton of ways to be fearless over these next few months. And thank y'all for being on. Thank y'all for wanting to get involved. Thank y'all for taking, it's 9:47 on the East Coast, taking time tonight to be here. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all. We're going to do this. We're going to have fun while we're doing it. Follow Kamala Harris HQ and have a little laugh during the day like I do. And in November, we'll celebrate and get back to work.
Kamala Harris HQ is hilarious.
Let's do this. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Y'all still with us out there? Listen, this call is fired up. Somebody in the chat said it's 8-8. We only have 88 days left, Kenya. 88 days. And I think if the past 3 weeks are any sort of sign of what the next 88 days are going to look like, buckle up.
Yeah, it's gonna be wild ride. It's gonna be a wild ride.
Listen, I have some fun facts for you about Vice President Kamala Harris. Are you ready for it?
Yeah. Let's go. I love that.
I mean, we already knew she was Jamaican, but here's one for you. While attending law school in San Francisco, Harris lived with her sister Maya and helped potty train her niece Mina. And the quote, she wrote this was in her book, actually. She says, "In dealing with the brutal stuff, the dog eat dog in school, and then I would come home and we would all stand around the toilet and wave goodbye to pieces of shit. It puts things into perspective." And here's another one for you. Speaking about Vice President Kamala Harris, people say she didn't do anything for like this. There's a common misconception, Kenya, that she didn't do anything for Black folks. One of the biggest initiatives she had when she became Attorney General of the state of California, and just for context, California is one of the largest states in the union, and running the California Attorney General's office is like being the head of the biggest law firm in the country, possibly second only to the Justice Department, which is probably the biggest law firm in the world. So it's the second biggest law firm in the world, in perspective. But here's the factoid, Kenya. She created Open Justice, an online platform to make criminal justice data available to the public. The database helped improve police accountability by collecting information on the number of deaths and injuries that happened for those that were in police custody. And we heard somebody say that data is justice. I know that was in the chat maybe about an hour ago. And there's something that Vice President Harris gets. So do you listen, it's really important that folks do their research here.
Soundbites. Do your research.
Do your research. And listen, one more for you. She's actually done a lot when it comes to police brutality. There's so many things that we're not talking about in the media cycle, and they're choosing to pick out the negative things. So folks, do your research and figure out, know what you need to know about this woman before you just say she's not right, she's not good enough. We need to I don't know, she didn't help Black folk. All the myths that you hear, she didn't do enough, is she really Black? We've corrected a lot of that misinformation tonight. We'll continue to correct more of it as the night goes on. But now it's time for our next speaker. Kenya, who's coming up next?
So our next speaker is from the great state of Florida, Representative Chevron Jones.
Chev. Oh, you're on mute, brother. Hold on. Make sure you get on mute now.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, Chev. How are you, brother?
I'm doing well. How y'all doing?
We're good.
Man, y'all listen. I actually was absolutely enjoying the program, and I want to just seriously just thank you all for not just the opportunity, but for the space that you all have created and that you all continue to create. And I'll say this, Richard, don't laugh at me, but who needs to fact check when we have Richard Fowler at the scenes doing all the fact checking?
Thank you. Listen, I was getting ready to ask because you're not Jamaican, but we might accept you because you have mad jobs. I was getting ready to ask, do you want to go by chairman? Do you want to go by senator? Do you want to go by black man? Because you got mad jobs over there, Chev.
Yeah, listen, I'm a Jamaican for real right now with 3 jobs rolling right now. Seriously. But seriously, I'm so happy to be on here. And so thank you to you, Richard, Kenya, congratulations to you and to Earl. Thank you all for just creating this amazing space and this quick huddle for us to get together. Before I even get into my message, I just want to center us in the power of this moment, not just the moment with VP Harris and Governor Walz, but the moment with all of us being here together in this space, fighting for our existence and the existence of me and my partner's children, your children and your children's children. And I truly believe that we've come this far on the shoulders and by the way of sweat and tears of our ancestors who have scars to prove their fight, that we continue here today. So thank you all for creating this space for us. And I just want to center us. So I really appreciate that. Yeah, I want to start off just sharing a quick story when I went to Iowa with Rep. Malcolm Kenyatta and Representative Ramesh Akbari in 2017. And we went there to campaign for then presidential candidate Joe Biden. He didn't have a running mate at that time. He had many people who were running in that field with him. At that moment, I knew what my why was. It was cold that day. It was unfamiliar territory. And honestly, it was the first time that I had actually campaigned for a major ticket candidate. But I had no choice because the alternative was just too much for me to bear another 4 years of. I'll be honest with you. I'll be lying to you if I told you that my why then is the same now, because it's not. And my why this time for VP Harris and Governor Walz has everything to do with what I saw happening in the Florida legislature and the copycat legislations that was happening all across this country. And I'm not just talking about when it comes to LGBTQ issues. I'm talking about how marginalized people had to not feel seen, heard, or represented in state legislatures all across this country, more particularly here in Florida. And so I know what my why is. Because when I found myself as the first and only LGBTQ person to ever be elected to the Florida Senate in Florida's history, sitting in a chamber where I had to fight for my Blackness and my truth at the same time, I promised myself and my deceased brother that I would never do that again and sit in silence, but I will always fight like hell against anybody who interrupts someone else's human experience. And so our fight in this moment can't be just about us, because there are so many people that are dependent on you and I to come through for them, not just now, but even after this moment ends. Us just showing up just because can no longer be the case. And I'm absolutely understanding that as we sit here and watch how our country is in a decisive moment between who we are and where we can go and someone who is trying to take us of where we used to be. So we just can't show up normally. The things that we have seen across this country in state legislatures like Florida is exactly what the Republicans desire to nationalize. They want to nationalize banning books. They want to nationalize continuously the banning the gender affirming care, restricting how LGBTQIA plus people can show up at their workplace. That's their agenda. That's their Project 2025. And if you don't have to look far, because right here in Florida we've checked some of those boxes already. So it's clear that this election will be a choice between two very different visions for our future. We want our future to look like. You have a vice president who has served alongside one of the greatest presidents. And I think we owe it to President Biden to thank him for getting us to this place. In our lifetime, we've seen an amazing man. And she is up against a former president who nearly bankrupted this country financially and bankrupted us morally. So we, the people on this call, and many other marginalized people, we know what it feels like to be lost. we know what it feels like to be left out. So today, and the reason why we're here in this moment is all because we know what it feels like when the pendulum swings, and when it has swung so much that we are the receivers of it. And in this moment, we are the receivers of this. I don't know if you all watched it, but my best friend Mario and I, we sat and watched the press conference. The former president did a 1-hour press conference talking to the American people. Not one solution, not one way to bring this country together. And he gave no hope or a map of how he would lift the American people. The man compared the size of the inauguration to the March on Washington. His inauguration to the March on Washington. Imagine that. Clearly, he only had 25,000 people, and March on Washington had millions of people, some not even counted. But I want us to go down memory lane, not just by the lies that Donald Trump has told, because I don't want to spend my conversation talking about Donald Trump because we already know what he's done, right? And let's go down memory lane and remind people what it was like before Joe Biden and Kamala Harris took office. A deadly pandemic was raging. Thousands of small businesses was shuttering forever. Even within my own district, black small businesses have never come back and recovered back from COVID. Millions of Americans lost their job. Our literal democracy is hanging on a thread. January 6th, what they continue to deny. We were lurking from crisis after crisis after crisis after crisis, all exacerbated by what? A chaotic, dangerous man who was only looking out for himself, just like we saw today for 1 hour. Kamala Harris, as you all already know, and Governor Walz have a proven track record. She has been a partner for the president, and Governor Walz has led his state and passed meaningful legislation, you all, that we all have asked and have been advocating for in state legislatures for a long period of time. You all have heard repeatedly from every speaker about the qualifications of this vice president. I'm going to do a Richard Fowler real quick, and I'm going to give y'all some facts so you all know that you can't compare when you don't compete. So this is not a competition. So there's really no true comparison. So even if you don't want to attribute the president's success to her, let's talk about the woman who has been in the Situation Room with the president. Let's talk about a woman who has had to make tough calls. Let's talk about her being the first Black woman to serve as the U.S. Senator in California. And let's talk about her being the first Black woman attorney general. So what are we talking about here? You cannot compare when you don't compete. And in Vice President Harris's words, we're not going back. And to you all, I'll tell you, we can't even afford to go back. I know many of you will be at DNC, and I'm looking forward to breaking bread with many of you to figure out how we can strategize, not just in Florida, but also within your communities. We can't allow this moment just to be this moment. We got to be able to carry this on from this moment to the next moment. And we have to carry it on to show that we have camaraderie around what we're trying to do and what we're trying to accomplish. Anything disjointed cannot work. Anything that's disjointed, it will continue to look unorganized, and they will look at us as weak. But the fact that we are all on here today, we're not weak, we're stronger than we ever been. And I'll end with this. On the HRC call, on the last HRC call, Brandon and Nick asked each of us, what is that one word that is motivating us in this moment? And I said history. And I still stick to that word because I want history to judge me based on how I showed up in this moment. I want history to judge my partner, how he shows up in this moment. I want history to judge my best friend, judge my nephew, I want history to judge you, how you show up in this moment. I don't have to convince you of it because I'm almost convinced that you all know how you want history to judge you. So my question to you is, what is your one word? And I want you to use that as your guide and as your motivation. If you're going to DNC, I'll see you next week. If not, I'll see you on the journey. Take care, y'all. Love.
Senator Jones.
Senator Jones, I was getting ready to ask about Black jobs, but you ended so high, I didn't want to take the grace away. And now I feel like I should pass the offering plate, but
we pass the offering plate to Kamala Harris and Governor Walz. There's a link down there. That's the offering. Will there be one?
But listen, I had to watch that hour-long press conference too.
Wasn't it crazy?
It was wild. I mean,
so how have we gotten here? Like, how do we get to a place where the leader of the free world used to be a leader of the free world of a major party get on national TV and have that much space to lie to the American people? Come on, Richard, come on.
It was like word association towards the end. He was like, "Oh yeah, Afghanistan, apples and China." I was like, "Whoa." I couldn't even follow. I couldn't. He's like, we're winning in all the polls, all the major polls, just the polls. It was like,
just the polls. We're winning in all polls.
But I think it's part of, to some extent, I think this is one of these moments. This guy is used to controlling the media cycle. This is what he's done for almost 8 years to control. He almost had the volume to the media in his house, and he can turn it on, turn it off. And for the past 2 weeks, what we've actually seen is this random girl from Oakland, this little girl from Oakland,
random girl,
who took the bus to school, has stolen the media cycle from him. He don't know what to do with himself.
He doesn't.
There's no idea what to do with himself. He's like, I don't know. And that's what you saw. It's like when you put salt on a frog.
I'm okay with that. I love seeing people scramble. Please, you got 88 days to figure yourself out, and I hope you don't.
Senator, chairman, and when I say chairman, it's because he's the chairman of the Miami-Dade Democratic Party.
Yes. Shameless plug. I hope you all are coming on September 21st to our Blue Gala. We got a surprise speaker for y'all, so I hope y'all come.
Here's a surprise speaker for you. He's not gonna break the news here with us. It's okay. We'll take it.
Thank y'all. Bye, y'all.
Appreciate you, brother.
Appreciate you, brother. All right, take care.
Listen, I have more information. I have more information to put out there. I've become the fact checker. But listen, Kamala Harris, the border czar. I was saving that one towards the end of the call for the people who stayed with us. You get the good nuggets. So there's been all this stuff, Kenya, about is Kamala Harris the border czar or is she not the border czar? First of all, there's no such thing as a border czar, right? The board, it's not a thing. Like, it's not in the Constitution. It's not in federal legislation. It's not even in the Plum Book, which is where all the federal jobs are listed. It's a title that's usually given out to the president. Can give anybody a title. Case in point, when Barack Obama was trying to pass healthcare, he had a healthcare czar. But the Biden administration does not actually have a border czar. There's no role. This was a title that was given to her by Republicans. Specifically, it was a title given to her by Trump's doctor, current doctor and sitting senator from Texas, sitting Congressman Ronnie Jackson. I think that's his name. But let's actually talk about what she has done on the border. She was put in responsibility of diplomatic efforts to countries that had large amounts of their citizens crossing America's southern border. So we're talking about countries that are part of the Northern Triangle: Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador. And part of her role was, what diplomatic efforts could we put in place to cause folks not to leave their home countries and take the treacherous journey to cross America's southern border? She used the power of the vice presidency. She used the power of the telephone to create jobs, to decrease the political instability in those places, and to slowly but surely decrease border crossings. As we speak right now, border crossings are the lowest we've seen them in the Biden administration's 4 years. Now, let's be very fair. At the top of the Biden administration, border crossings are actually very high. And the reason for that is one administration's policies reflect what happened in the previous administration. And, you know, Trump goes around and says he fixed the border. Now, listen, I believe in fixing things too. If you have a leaky roof and you fix it, what happens? It stops leaking. So if it is true that Donald Trump had fixed the border, wouldn't nobody be crossing it? The simple fact is he didn't fix the border. He passed a couple of executive orders and used some fear mongering and slowed down border crossings, but the border wasn't fixed. Now, there's a lot of folks on here from New York, Denver, Chicago, LA, and they're saying, well, we have a lot of migrants in our city right now. And let's talk about that for just a second. So the reason why you're seeing an influx of undocumented migrants in some of America's major cities has everything to do with an initiative that was created by Governor Abbott of Texas and Governor DeSantis of Florida. And what they did was, when folks crossed the border, they literally human trafficked them to other parts of the country, specifically Democratic-run cities where there are a lot of Black people: New York, Chicago, LA, right? And they forced these mayors to deal with a problem that their members of Congress should be dealing with, but they're not. And as a result of that, you've seen in many of these cities, mayors like Mayor Brandon Johnson of Chicago, Mayor Eric Adams of New York, having to deal with a federal problem on not the state level, but on the local level, and using city resources to deal with these problems. And the reason for that is pretty simple. And if you talk to Mayor Johnson in Chicago, he'll tell you this: I have a lot of people who live in health deserts and food deserts. And so we had to hire more staff in our health department to check for tuberculosis, to check for communicable diseases for folks who are undocumented, who those health screenings were not done for them in Texas. And so they're spending extra money that they didn't have to spend on dealing with this migrant crisis that they did not create. And none of these mayors can solve, because only Congress can solve it. But that's just some more information for you, because it's important that you're informed about what's happening.
Yeah.
And look, if we want to fix this, if we want to fix the immigration, let me tell you where it happens. It's called the United States Congress. They're the ones with the purse. They have the purse strings and they cut the checks. And if they're not cutting a check, I got news for you: we're not fixing immigration.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. It's really simple. Oh. Well, Kenya, it's been fun. It's been great. I'm pointing down to, don't forget, CBE Political. The site is live, running. We'll be going all. Learn how to volunteer, do phone banks, and donate if you can. And yes, it's been fun. This has been an exciting evening.
It has been really exciting. And I mean, listen, I think in this election, our community has so much at stake, y'all. I mean, like, I know there's a lot of Florida folks on here. We just saw Senator Jones. I always say, when you see these book bans happen, think about who's in the middle. Who's always left in the middle? It's James Baldwin, right? Because he's Black and he's LGBTQ, and his books are getting banned no matter how you hit them. And we're in the same position as Brother Baldwin. We're in the same position as his books tonight. If you aren't part of, if you, as they always say, if you aren't at the table, you are on the menu, and you have a chance to be on the table. You have a chance to sit at the table by simply voting, but more than just voting, get involved in this election. Talk to folks in your community. When you're at the hair salon, the beauty shop, the Walmart line, somebody's at the Walmart line, talk about why this election matters to you. Get engaged, get involved, donate, volunteer, and be the cavalry is not coming. Okay, we are the cavalry.
We are the cavalry.
So get involved and listen. Also follow all these amazing folks that you met tonight. You could definitely follow me at Richard A. Fowler. How do folks follow the Center for Black Equity, Kenya?
Center for Black Equity on all social media platforms. Just literally just type it in.
Type it in. I will share it on my story.
Center for Black Equity.
Center for Black Equity. Follow.
Sure, I'm sharing this on my social media. Yes, get all the information. We have a very active social media, especially CBE Political Action Fund page. We're going to be sharing a lot of information on a lot of ways to get engaged, including we have 2 more calls coming up that we have planned as of right now. In September, we're going to have the Black LGBTQ young adults for Harris Walz, as well as we have October.
Wait a minute. Before we do that,
I
joining us from Pennsylvania. Oh boy.
Oh, come on in.
Pennsylvania, the one and only Representative Malcolm Kenyatta. Listen, you beat the buzzer, my friend.
Listen, I will be anywhere, no matter how close of a call. If Richard Fowler is going to be there, if Kenya Hutton's going to be there, you know I have to be in the building. Listen, I would just say very quickly what I'm sure we've heard a lot tonight about not only what's at stake in this election. I think we all know that, but the question really is, what role do we have to play in those states? So let me tell you this quick story, and then we'll get out of here. So when I ran for state rep the first time, and you listen, my predecessor had been there for 33 and a half years, so a long time. And so everybody and their mom, whoever thought about running, was like, I'm running in this seat. And so a couple of nights before the election, folks put out these awful homophobic flyers about me saying, North Philly, don't vote for the gay guy, though they use very different language. Spoiler alert, I won the election, but 2 big problems with this attack ad that they put out as the quick aside. So first, they spelled my name wrong, okay? And like even in the attack ad, like you got to put both of the L's in Malcolm. You got to do that. But then more to the point, they put up a picture of me and my ex. And so my husband is like, who the hell is that in this flyer? So they wanted me to lose the election, lose my life. Very, very bad folks. But more seriously, the night after the election, the day after the election, excuse me, I see one of my neighbors. And she's walking her dog. I'm tired. I'm trying not to have a conversation. But we have that moment where it's like, I see you and I see you seeing me, right? So this conversation is happening. And she said, you know, Malcolm, I don't know if you know, but somebody put these awful flyers out about you all around the district. And I said to her, Miss Debbie, I promise you I saw the flyers. And she said, well, I'm telling you because I was so upset that I got 3 more people to go vote who said they weren't even going to vote in this election. I ended up winning that 1 ward on election night by 1 vote. By 1 vote. And so it is a reminder to all of you, hopefully, that this election is not going to be won by candidates. This election is going to be won by you, using the power that you have to talk to your neighbors about what matters to you and about why you are voting, about why they should, and about what it means for our collective community. So I'm grateful to you. I can't wait for us to win this election. We are going to win. We must win, but we're going to have a lot of fun along the way. And I'm grateful to spend any time with the great Kenya and Richard Fowler.
Thank you, bro. And what are you running? You're on the ballot. What are you running for?
Yeah,
well, you know what? You know, I should have brought this up, especially on this call, because I'm the first openly LGBTQ person ever nominated for statewide office in Pennsylvania. I'm running to be Pennsylvania's next Auditor General. If folks know the job that Tish James had in New York before she was Attorney General, it's a job in New York called Public Advocate. Same thing for Pennsylvania. I make sure nobody's stealing money, but then I ask the difficult questions about what did we do with the money that we invested, your money in tax dollars? What did we do with it? And did it result in us getting the types of things we deserve in our community? So listen, I'm just grateful for you all. I'm grateful for this community and this conversation. And it's because of this community that we are going to win big, not for a candidate. We're going to win big for us. Now, luckily, we have an incredible candidate in our future president, Kamala Harris, and her incredible Governor Walz, her incredible running mate. So we have good candidates. We have people who care about us. But we know why we have to win. We have to win because what's going to happen in our lives if we allow Donald Trump to step another foot into the White House.
I couldn't have said, listen, I think those are closing words, Kenya. What do you think?
Right? I was like, what can I say? What can we say?
ladies and gentlemen,
you for joining us,
Representative Malcolm Kenyatta. I'm going to say Auditor General.
From your mouth to God's ears. Take care, guys.
Thank you, brother. Listen, we did it 2 hours. 2 hours and 14 minutes. We started on time. We started the curtain on time. We were trying to give you Anita Baker. We started on time at 8 o'clock. This has been absolutely amazing. The Center for Black Equity and the work that y'all do each and every day, Kenya. If you've never heard it before, and if you heard it all night, the work that you do, the work that Earl has done, has created so much joy for millions of, more beyond thousands, millions of people, especially from where y'all started from. Like I said at the beginning of the call, I talked to one of the living founders of Black Pride, Ernest Hopkins. The first Pride had 800 people.
Yep.
Which is remarkable in 1991. The last, I think MPD estimates, the last DC Black Pride had 80,000 people. And that's happening all around the country. So millions of people have been affected by y'all's work. So thank y'all for what y'all do each and every single day, especially in the month. And remember, Black Pride happens year round. There's a different Black Pride happening, what, every weekend?
Almost every month. Yeah, almost every weekend, every month. We have Black Pride all the way down to November. We have Black Pride from January to November.
Black Pride all the way down to November. So thank y'all for y'all's work and for keeping our community together and strong and love and in love in the proverbial sense. So thank you, brother, for what you do every day. It means the world to me, and I think it means the world to our community.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Richard, for all you do for the CBE. You've been there supporting us with everything. Can't get off this call without, giving you your props and thanking you as well. And thank you for jumping on to do this call with us.
Oh, no, it's been a blast. And for all the folks who were with us for this past 2 hours, thank you all for dedicating your time to this. Now let's go out and let's win this thing.
Yes, let's win it. Thank you all.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
In this election, we each face a question. What kind of country do we want to live in? There are some people who think we should be a country of chaos, of fear, of hate. But us, we choose something different. We choose freedom. The freedom not just to get by, but get ahead. The freedom to be safe from gun violence. The freedom to make decisions about your own body. We choose a future where no child lives in poverty, where we can all afford health care, where no one is above the law. We believe in the promise of America, and we're ready to fight for it. Because when we fight, we win. So join us. Go to KamalaHarris.com and let's get to work.
I'ma keep on running 'cause the winner don't quit on themselves.